Hi guys, welcome to Linux YouTube channel. My name is Ram Mishra and I'm your online instructor. So what's in this video? In this video we will talk about Kubernetes NodePort Services. So guys, let's begin the topic. But before start the lab session, we need to understand few points, which is what is Kubernetes service, their types and use case of NodePort services. So let's talk about the service first. What is service? As per the Kubernetes documentation, Kubernetes service is a mechanism to expose application both internally and externally. There are three primary service types in the Kubernetes: ClusterIP service, NodePort service, and load balancer service. NodePort services extend the functionality of ClusterIP service by enabling external connectivity to our application, and it builds up on the top of the ClusterIP service and provide a way to expose a group of ports to the outside world. Let me scroll down. If I go back on the type of the services, give me 1 second, let me show you where it is. Yeah, here you can see ClusterIP and the NodePort, right? So NodePort, as is the name indicates, it's open a specified port on all node, and any traffic that is sent to this port is forwarded to the services. If you talk about the use case, this service is useful when you need to expose your application to the external client. When you create a NodePort service, Kubernetes opens support in the range of 30,000 to 32,767, and all of its worker node. So if you click on the NodePort, here the things are clearly mentioned, right? So these services are ideal for applications that need to be accessible from outside of the cluster, such as web application or APIs. So for these types of environment, we can use NodePort services. With the NodePort services, we can access our application using the node's IP address and the port number assigned to the services, right? So question come in our mind is how we can demonstrate or how we can use this kind of services. So let's move to the lab session and we'll see how we can work with the NodePort services in Kubernetes cluster. So I'm back on my Linux VM. Here it is, and let me clean the screen. Cat etc Red Hat release. Let me start with the Red Hat release version. So here you can see I am working on the single Linux machine, and currently I'm using RHEL 9.3, and in this machine I have already installed Minikube single node Kubernetes cluster. Let me check the status. Minikube status. See, it's running perfect. So before moving to the next, we need to verify the status of the cluster first. To check the node availability in the cluster, we need to run the following command: kubectl get nodes. Okay, you can see my Minikube node is in ready condition. Once you have a node available in your cluster, you are ready to create your pod. So now we will check the list of the pod in my default namespace. So I go with the kubectl get pods. So no resource found in the default namespace, because this is it will be our first pod on this cluster. So that's the reason you will not see any pod in the default namespace. Let's check the service availability also in the cluster, running the same command kubectl get services or svc. So here you can see one default cluster IP service is running in the default namespace for Kubernetes cluster, which is running on port number 443. I don't have any kind of NodePort services running on this cluster, right? So let's move to the first tab, which is launch our first pod in Kubernetes cluster. So we need to create a file in the dedicated directory with a block of code. So I'll move to my Kubernetes directory, and let me go with first pod.yaml, right? The code could be based on JSON or YAML format, and pod creation code is available on Kubernetes documentation. You can grab it from there. I have already copied the code in my notepad, and I have already updated the things. So let me copy the code from here. Yeah, here it is the code. Let me copy and paste it here. Simple. Okay, let me go and explain. So here you can see, so basically in this YAML file, I'm going to launch one pod having the label team IT with Nginx container. Here team is a key and IT is a value, and let me deploy it and check it with the label whether it's working or not, right? So kubectl apply -f first pod.yaml. Perfect. Oh, it's created. Let's check the status. Get pods. Okay, it's in up and running, and I can go with the show labels. Okay, so here you can see The get sub command can be used to display a pod's label, and here you can see labels are showing as an additional column in the output. So one pod, first pod is successfully running with team IT label, right? Now let's move to the second part, which is launch NodePort service file. We can copy the code from here, from the official documentation on Kubernetes, and we can modify it according our own scenario. So I have already copied and modified as per need. Let me copy again from my notepad. So this is my service.yaml file, right? So let me create service.yaml, paste it, save. Let me try to explain from here. So this YAML file defines a Kubernetes service object of type NodePort. The selector block instructs the NodePort service to send incoming traffic to one of the port with this label. In my case, it is Team Linux label, right? So let me explain few more important fields here. First of all, we will start from the kind. Kind means service. Here it is. So kind service specify the type of Kubernetes object that is being defined. Here we are defining a service rather than pod. Then the name specify the name of the service. In my case, my service name is backend. Here is the name of the service. Then service type is not pod type, right? And then in the ports block, we have defined three port: not port, port, and target port. Not port, port, and the target port. One line explanation is mentioned here. So NodePort tells Kubernetes which port to open to the outside world or all of the worker nodes. This makes them accept incoming connection from outside the cluster on the port which choose here, that is 32,000. This field tells Kubernetes to expose the services on port 32,000 on every node in the cluster. Second is port, right? Port exposed within the cluster. Specify the port that should be open to the cluster internally. Incoming connections will be accepted on this port only if they come from within the cluster, not from outside of the cluster. External connection won't be accepted on this port. In our case, this is 8181. And the last is target port, ports on the port. Target port, this service will forwarding incoming connection to one of the port it's exposed. Target port is specify on which part of the port to send traffic. With this config, even if traffic comes to the port 32,000 on the node, it will be sent to the port 80 of the port, that is my target port. And at the last, I have mentioned selector. This specifies a label selector that defines which port should be exposed by this service. In this example, the service will be exposed all ports that have the label team with the value IT. It's a way of telling Kubernetes this service should sit in the front of this collection of port. All incoming traffic to this service should be redirected to one of these ports, right? So this is the service file. Let me go to deploy this one. Okay. So save and quit. Same command, kubectl, apply, this time service.yaml. Okay. Press enter, created. Now let me go back and run the command kubectl get services status, get svc. Okay, so here you can see the selector type is IT. Here you can see the NodePort service is ready, right? And new service name is backend is ready with the new cluster IP, that is 10.99239.229, and NodePort is running on the port number 32333, right? We can get the detailed information about this service using kubectl describe command. So I can go with kubectl describe svc. The service name is backend. Okay, it gave me some warning, failed to update endpoint slice. Okay, endpoint controller, not a big deal. Let me try to delete this service file and deploy one more time. So I will delete it. Okay, now let's check. Gone. Let me apply one more time. Okay, hopefully everything work fine. Perfect, it's working. So now here you can see selector type is team IT, type is not port, cluster IP port is 8181, target port is 80, node port is 32000, and the cluster IP is 10.105.172 192, and finally endpoint is 10.244.0.7. This is the IP address of my Nginx container, which is currently pointed out by this service file. So now time to check. Let's move inside the Minikube cluster node and check the node IP. So I'll open a new tab here. I run the command minikube ssh, and for IP address I will run IP ADDR show. So here you can see the IP range is 192.168.49.2. Let me copy from here, exist. Okay. So now if I will try from my Linux browser, which is outside of this cluster, we should get the response from Kubernetes cluster if everything is okay, right? So let me go with Firefox. The node IP of my Kubernetes node and port is 32000. Let me go with the ampersand. Perfect. Let's see. Let me check the services. It's running, and the pod condition. Yeah, it's also running. Everything is okay. Just wait. Let it be open. Wow, perfect. See, we can see the Nginx welcome web page, which is outside from this cluster. I'm hitting this from my outside of the cluster, right? So here we can see we hit on the node IP. This is the node IP and the port is 32000. Node IP with the node port. We can get the result from Kubernetes cluster. So in short, I can access my services from outside of the cluster with the help of NodePort services, right? So guys, that's all about the NodePort service and its demonstration. Hopefully you enjoyed and learned new things. Soon I will come up with another new interesting topic. Till then, keep practicing. If you feel something I have missed or you wanted to know more something else, please reach out through my social media link, which is mentioned in the description. And if you like this video, please do not forget to like, share and subscribe my channel and press the bell icon button from the latest update. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and goodbye.